to be here. So hopefully the time that he is here, we will appreciate it and take a full advantage of it, inshallah.
Thank you very much, Khalid. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulullah wa alihi wa sahbihi wa mawala. Praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, peace and blessing be upon Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Brother Khalid, Prof. Nazari, Dr. Makram, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And a very good afternoon to you all. I believe people after lunch need some refreshment, so please bear with me. I do have some slides if the committee is kind enough to show them. That might be the refreshment. I'll be briefly touching on the ongoing international developments with regards to the Palestinian issue, and I titled my presentation as the Palestinian struggle in the era of Trump, the US president. It is a great opportunity to be speaking before an audience of activists, academics and students as well, because I do believe that you all look at the Palestinian issue from an analytic point of view. The Palestinian issue is a product of an international shift in the balance of power. It is always affected heavily by international developments, and whatever the superpower decides will certainly have an impact on the Palestinian struggle and the Palestinian people. I'll highlight the international and regional pressure on the Palestinian people, or what is dubbed by media as the deal of the century, the direct Israeli pressure on the Palestinians, the apartheid policy. Third is the Palestinian resistance, and finally the rise of the international solidarity movement. No slides yet. My brothers and sisters, the current situation in Palestine is one of real suffering. You see the pictures of the ongoing protests in Gaza. You see the pictures of congregation being harassed by the Israeli uniformed military forces in Jerusalem. You see youngsters being shot dead, executed in the streets. You see all this, and you should always remember that this is a product of the blind support of the US for Israel. Currently, we're talking about developments that are happening so fast in Palestine, international pressure that is being applied on the Palestinians and on the regional powers, and as Dr. Makram has just highlighted, some regional actors like Jordan and others are also facing this pressure. We're talking about political, economic, financial, and security measures and pressures being applied on the Palestinian people to finish off the Palestinian struggle. Now, the goal, the aim of the international society is to finish off, to settle the Palestinian problem. Once and for all, there won't be any Palestinian problem, there won't be any Palestinian struggle, because the superpower has the intention of bringing peace, quote unquote, to the Middle East. Let's look at the measures that has been taken, the measures that have been taken by the US and its allies in the recent years. One, we see Trump declaring the city of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Not long ago, about a year ago, in December 2017, President Trump declared that the city of Jerusalem is to host the American embassy in the state of Israel, which is a clear violation of international law, of course, and which is a clear blind support for the Israeli policy of annexation of the city of Jerusalem. So the identity of Jerusalem is to be transformed into a Jewish identity. The next move, the next international action that President Trump has taken is to obliterate the right of return for the Palestinian refugees. In only a matter of 2 years or less, President Trump has managed to actually pressure the international community and the Palestinians on so many levels, including the Palestinian refugees. As we talk, the Palestinian refugees and refugee camps in Gaza, the West Bank, and most importantly, the diaspora, are being pressured through financial measures, through political measures, and other measures. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency used to receive aid and funds from different international actors, including the United States, because the United Nations resolutions require the international community to help the Palestinian refugees go back to Palestine. What President Trump has done is to cut off aid to UNRWA in order to get rid of the Palestinian refugees. And if you ask friends who have come from Lebanon, what is happening to the Palestinian refugees over there, there are efforts through mafias to help Palestinian refugees who are living in total deprivation migrate to Europe and other destinations. Why is that so? Why is it so easy now to migrate to Europe and other countries? It's basically because there is a political motive behind that. They want to get rid of as many Palestinian refugees as they can. The Palestinian refugees in Syria had to relocate after the war. Now the ones in Lebanon are being pushed into the sea and pushed into migration again. And at one point of time, we will find that there are no Palestinian refugees anymore. So there is an international conspiracy to get rid of the right of return. The next move that President Trump and his allies have done is to tighten the blockade on Gaza. The blockade on Gaza is worse than any time before. And trust me, my brothers and sisters, the feeling that we have in Palestine is that there is an international conspiracy to change the Palestinian struggle from one for freedom and independence to one for statehood, any state. So there is a push for the Palestinians in Gaza to be isolated from the rest of Palestine through different means, and it is very unfortunate that the US and Israel are using some Palestinian help to achieve this. They are pressuring the Palestinian Authority in order to further cut off Gaza from the rest of Palestine, apply punitive measures on Gaza, and so on, in order to make sure that resistance in Gaza collapses. And you can put the recent developments in Gaza in this context. There is a huge international conspiracy to bring down the resistance government and to make sure that the way is paved for some sort of an alternative Palestinian state to be established as a part of the deal of the century in Gaza. The next move by Trump and his allies is criminalizing Palestinian resistance. And I believe that slides can go on if one-handedly the computer is coping. There is an effort to criminalize Palestinian resistance. And we have seen the United Nations vote very recently, in which the Americans and their allies were seeking to label Palestinian resistance as a terrorist movement. Alhamdulillah, this has failed because of the support of our friends and allies worldwide, but the push is still there. The effort to criminalize resistance is still on the rise. And the next move that the international community, pressured by Trump, is doing is cutting off any aid for the Palestinians, Palestinian resistance, as well as the rest of the Palestinian people. This cut of funds is in order to push Palestinian actors to give in to any external pressure. You see that not only Palestinian resistance is facing financial pressure, but also the Palestinian Authority itself, which is a part of any political solution, which is a part of the settlement efforts. But there is a serious push to cut off any financial aid to the Palestinian institutions and Palestinian actors, including the UNRWA, the Palestinian Authority, resistance, etc., in order to make it easy for the deal of the century to flourish. Because when you starve the Palestinians, when you cut off any aid to the Palestinians, you're basically pushing them to extreme poverty and you're pushing them to accept solutions. which, by the way, won't work because it has not worked in the past. One final pressure and effort that is being done by the American administration under the leadership of Trump against the Palestinians is the effort to normalize relations between Israel and the rest of the neighborhood, the Arab and Muslim neighborhood. Alhamdulillah, Israel has been there for 70 years, but it has failed to penetrate the Muslim world. Yes, they have succeeded in a way or another in co-opting some Muslim nations into having normal relations with them, but the vast majority of the Muslim world continues to be defiant and resistant. We are in a country which has no political or diplomatic ties with Israel, and we are in a large Muslim world which continues to boycott Israel. Yes, Israel has made some success here or there, but the majority still boycotts Israel. It is unfortunate that there is a huge American pressure now on the Muslim nations, especially the Arab nations, to work with Israel. We have seen that in the Warsaw Summit a few weeks ago in February, where representatives of about 60 countries were gathered. Of course, we know that they were gathered to promote Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu before his elections, and to talk about the dangers of Iran on the Middle East. This kind of summit and these kinds of efforts are a very blatant move by the Americans to normalize Israel's relations with its neighborhood. So with all these international pressures, we expect the Palestinians to resist. But before talking about the Palestinian resistance, let's look and have a closer look at the Israeli pressure on the Palestinians, the direct Israeli policies. We are talking about a clear-cut apartheid. Apartheid is segregation. It's a policy where you discriminate between two different groups or more based on color, race, religion, etc. And this is now the current policy of the State of Israel. Very recently, Israel has adopted a basic law that is called the Jewish Nation State Law. In simple words, this is a constitutional law which recognizes Israel as a Jewish nation, a nation for the Jewish people. And it is an official endorsement of the ongoing policy of apartheid. This new law basically tells the world that Israel is not shy to practice apartheid. Apartheid is being manifested not only in the 1948 lands where Palestinians are denied the right to celebrate their language, to celebrate their national identity, but also in the occupied West Bank. West Bank is under a military occupation where settlements, illegal settlements are being expanded. And if you live there, you are not allowed to use roads that the Jewish settlers use. You're not allowed to use facilities that the Israeli Jewish settlers use. So you are basically facing daily treatment of apartheid. The other Israeli practice and policy that is being practiced against the Palestinians is the issue of Judaization of Jerusalem. And I believe some of my friends here have spoken about the efforts to Judaize Jerusalem that is taking place. But you have seen Palestinians having gatherings, protests recently in Al-Asbat Gate against the electronic gates, and most recently in Bab al-Rahma in 2019. It is only because Palestinians feel the burn of Israeli Judaization policy. Israel has declared the city of Jerusalem in 1982 as the eternal united capital of Israel. That means the policy of swallowing the city of Jerusalem is there. It's just a matter of time when we lose Jerusalem. And that's why Palestinians on the ground have stood strong against these policies. Now, at the current moment, Israel is having elections. Next month, Israel will have parliamentary elections. And interestingly, this time around, like many times before, right wing is competing with the extreme right wing. It's not a polarized society where you have right and left. Not anymore. Israel was founded by the left, but it is now being blindly led by the extremist right-wing groups in Israel. Now you have 3 generals in one camp, military generals, running against a right-wing prime minister who has allied himself with one of the Jewish racist groups that has been banned even in Israel itself. Prime Minister Netanyahu is now camping with the Jewish power, a Kahana-inspired group which basically hates everybody else. So we're talking about a very ridiculous situation where the Israeli right wing is competing against the other Israeli right wing. This Israeli practice, this Israeli apartheid, and I'll try to sum it up, this Israeli apartheid and this international pressure on the Palestinian struggle is, of course, inspiring the Palestinians to resist. Alhamdulillah, Palestinians have been able, with the blessings of Allah, to resist occupation for over 100 years. Since the British has stepped foot in Palestine, our resistance has continued. The Burak Revolution, the Great Revolution of the 30s, the fight against occupation in the 1948, the Palestinian revolution in the 60s, the Intifada in the 80s, the second Intifada in 2000s, the wars on Gaza, etc. Palestinians now need international solidarity more than any time before. In Jerusalem and in the West Bank, there has been an ongoing intifada. Yes, it's not a large-scale intifada like the ones we have seen in the past, but there is an individual intifada. Young Palestinians are taking up whatever they can to protest against Israeli practices. We have seen the Palestinians gathering in thousands in front of the gates of Jerusalem in 2017 and again in front of the gate of Al-Rahma, in Bab al-Rahma in 2019. We have seen the Palestinians in Gaza painting one of the most beautiful images and paintings of heroism and courage in modern age in the Great Return marches. You have seen the pictures of the protests that have taken place for over 51 weeks. We are talking about 1 year of ongoing unarmed civilian protests that are seeking return to our homeland and that are seeking to highlight the Palestinian struggle to the international community. It is very sad and it is very disappointing that the civilized free world, which has been telling Palestinians don't use arms against Israel, this is terrorism. It is very unfortunate that this same free world is silent while thousands of Palestinians are protesting unarmed against Israeli snipers and Israeli military power in the borders of Gaza. So far, over 280 Palestinians have been murdered by Israeli snipers. Over 30,000 have been injured. And trust me, my brothers and sisters, Palestinians, especially in Gaza, have arms. They have means to resist Israel. They can fire rockets if they want. But they chose this unarmed civilian move to move the world. And the world is yet to move. The world is still static. Finally, the Palestinians in diaspora are also joining their fellow Palestinian brothers and sisters in all kinds of resistance, and the Palestinians in Israeli jails are staging one of the greatest moves as well to push the Israeli authorities to give them their basic rights. As we speak, thousands of Palestinians have been protesting inside Israeli jails, demanding their basic rights, and Israel, in violation of all international laws, continues to practice measures of extreme measures of repression against the Palestinians. On the next month, April, the Palestine Prisoner Day is being celebrated worldwide. I hope people in Malaysia and in the rest of ASEAN will highlight it and celebrate it. Finally, my brothers and sisters, Alhamdulillah, with the blessings of Allah, although there have been huge external pressures on the Palestinians to give in, the Palestinians have successfully managed to maintain their struggle. We have, after so many years of occupation, apartheid, and ethnic cleansing, successfully managed to get the world's attention and to to rally our friends and allies worldwide. We're talking about an internationally inspired movement of solidarity that is taking place. We have official support everywhere. Votes in the United Nations prove that. You have seen the votes for Palestinian statehood gaining the support of over 130 nations. You have seen states like Malaysia, middle powers like Malaysia, taking a very courageous stand, and I salute the Malaysian people and the Malaysian leadership for their very strong and committed and principled policy of boycotting Israel. We have seen Malaysia banning Israeli athletes recently, and the Prime Minister, Dr. Mahathir, making it very clear that they are not interested in working with a criminal state like Israel. We have seen the Irish Parliament voting to boycott illegal Israeli settlements and their products. We have seen Kuwait taking strong initiatives in the International Parliamentary Union. We have seen Turkey condemning Israeli practices. We have seen Iran condemning Israeli practices and calling the Muslim world to unite against Israeli occupation. And we have seen many other initiatives. We look for more. We are today in ASEAN Plus conference, and I'm very hopeful that the different ASEAN nations will join this struggle, will continue to support the Palestinian efforts for freedom and independence. The two major Muslim nations in ASEAN, Malaysia and Indonesia, should play an active role in lobbying for the Palestinian struggle internationally and in this part of the world. In addition to this official support, we look forward to see more popular support. It is the more substantial and more lasting effort that we actually need. The people support, the popular support in solidarity with the Palestinians. We have seen BDS spreading around the world. We have the chairman of Malaysia branch of BDS, Boycott, Divest, Sanctions. I really hope that we will have a branch, a chapter for BDS in every ASEAN nation, and let Israeli Ministry of Strategic whatever issue new reports. Why not have your good faces on those beautifully printed Israeli reports calling you terrorists? That's an honor in this current age. Just like the Prime Minister of Malaysia has made it very clear many times that he does not care much what Israel thinks of him, I believe that activists should also follow suit and let Israel issue more reports about BDS spreading all over Asia, not only ASEAN, inshallah. More mass protests against Israeli practices have to take place. We have seen millions protesting in Jakarta, tens of thousands protesting in Kuala Lumpur, Istanbul, and other places. I really hope this continues, inshallah, in the right direction. And finally, more humanitarian aid. I've mentioned earlier that there is an effort to break the will of the Palestinians by cutting off all sources of survival. You have to be the alternative support. You have to offer the alternative help and humanitarian aid that the Palestinians need. Palestinians are not beggars, my brothers and sisters. They don't need that financial aid to lavish in luxury life. No, they need it to resist Israeli occupation in order to continue the struggle, in order for our great return marches to continue, in order for Jerusalem to continue to be protected by the Murabitin in Jerusalem. We need popular support of all kind and sorts. With this, I would like to end my presentation and thank you for your strong commitment to the Palestinian struggle. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitate for us to pray in Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa after its liberation soon. Wassalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, brother Muslims. I give him an extra time because first thing is because my phone is dead, so I cannot track time. Second thing is because he has a lot of things to share, and I think it's very important for us to hear. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Prof. Nazari, the chairman of BDS Malaysia, who Israel will call as a terrorist in a suit. Yeah, terrorist in Songko.